Birds of Prey and the Fantabulous Emancipation of One Harley Quinn is a movie that really matters to me as a person. And today, we're going to be talking about Birds of Prey and the Fantabulous Emancipation of One Harley Quinn. Birds of Prey and the Fantabulous Emancipation of One Harley Quinn released last year for those unaware, and apparently quite a few people were unaware because this movie did not do too great, and it was a really good movie. I have a video on it back when it initially came out, which is a little inaccurate, now because my thoughts on it have changed, and it is also a lot more important to me now than it was then, because it was a really good movie then, and I really did love it. I loved it more than I love it now. I still really love the movie, but there are a few flaws I have with it now that I didn't have the first time, and I guess we can just get those out of the way first. So I guess we'll start off with the negatives. To start off the negatives, Cassandra Cain is not that good in this movie. Cassandra Cain is a pretty annoying character. In the comics, she's a member of the Bat family. She is a version of Batgirl, I believe. I don't know too much about her. I just know she's way different than she is in this movie. In comparison, in this movie, she's kind of an annoying brat who's just dragged around in the story the majority of the time. She starts the entire conflict by eating a diamond. And that's the only reason she's in this movie, is because she ate the stupid diamond. So if she didn't eat the diamond, she wouldn't even be in this movie. So she was kind of annoying, but well, whatever. And this movie does feel like it could have used a little more of the other main characters. Black Canary and Huntress specifically, I felt really could have been in there more, because Black Canary was probably the one who had the second most screen time, just behind Harley, and she didn't have too much screen time. And then Huntress really could have used more screen time. She was one of the ones with the least of the main characters, and I wish she had had more screen time. She was probably my second favorite character in this entire movie, behind Harley, obviously. And yeah, I think it could have been a little longer. It could have used more of the other birds, but otherwise, I don't have too much other criticisms about it. There's a couple of times the licensed music just feels tacked on, but I don't feel like it's anywhere near as bad as it is in 2016 Suicide Squad. Just to make sure that it's clear, because as I said in my 2021 Suicide Squad video, I feel the soundtrack works really well there. It's probably the best out of these Harley 3 movies, and my opinion, the soundtrack, it's the best in general. But yeah, those are my main nitpicks of the movie. It's not too much for the movie to be criticized like that. But going into positives, the entire movie otherwise, the action is amazing. The action is some of my favorite in any superhero comic book film I've seen. It's really something else. It is really amazing. I love the use of color in the action scenes. Like, yes, we've seen smoke plenty of times recently in these big action movies, but at the same time there's stuff like glitter and paint rolling around, which you don't see often in these big action scenes, and I really loved that. I love how the action scenes are shot. The action scenes are shot really well. The action scenes are shot amazingly well. And I'm glad they were shot this way, because it's really nice. Like, I think the scene in the police building when she has the paint canisters and the smoke canisters and the glitter and all that is probably one of my favorite action scenes in cinema. It's probably one of my favorites out there in general. It's probably my favorite DC action scene, besides maybe the one in The Dark Knight with where the hostages are dressed up as the clowns and the clowns are dressed up as hostages and stuff. That's probably the only big DC one I can think of at the moment that can compete with it. Because both of those are just like two of my favorite action scenes of all time. And yeah, and there's a lot of other amazing action scenes in here. When Harley's taking down all the prisoners after she lets them all out on accident, that scene's really good, and I feel like it does slow-mo right, which I don't think the Zack Snyder films in the same universe didn't really get, because the Zack Snyder films, these 30-second clips would be like 2 seconds in actual time, where it's used to show the impact of a hit in like 5 seconds of what normally be 2 seconds. It's not as drawn out, and I feel it works a lot better because it's in situations that make a lot more sense than just someone reaching for a sword slowly. I feel it works a lot better in this one. The action flows a lot more. The action is a lot more dynamic in this one. The booby trap one is another standout one. I really love how the action works in that one too, and how all the girls get their moments. And it's just an amazing scene. I really enjoy that scene. And yeah, the action here is just standout. And the characters are overall pretty good in this one. Harley is obviously the standout in this one. She has the most screen time in this movie. She's the main one in the marketing and everything. It's obvious she's the main character. But I think she's done really well. I think she's done better in this film than she is in Suicide Squad 2016 by a mile and a half. And I think even if her storyline in the Suicide Squad 2021 was better, I think her characterization here is better than it was in the 2021 film. I think this is her best characterization, and I think that's partially due to being written by a female, and I think that works really well. And Harley is just an amazing character in this, and her actress is really well done, because Margot Robbie is a great actress, and yet again I loved her performance here. I think she's the only thing that makes Harley any good in the 2016 Suicide Squad. She's the only reason Harley stands out in that movie. But yeah, I really liked her in this movie. Huntress is a really good character, even if she has very limited screen time. Huntress is amazing in this movie. She has a great storyline with getting revenge for her family's death against all the people that killed them, and against all the people who have caused all of this. And I thought she was really well done. And Mary Elizabeth Winstead does a great job in the role, just like Margot Robbie does with Harley Quinn. Black Canary is pretty good with her whole role of accepting her powers and stuff after her mother died, working with the cops, and the cops not really doing too much about it. I love that she slowly grows as a character to finally do good instead of working with the villain the entire time. I really liked that. And Renee Montoya was fine, I guess. She was fine. She didn't do too much in the movie. She wasn't super important in the movie. She's a cop, and she's kind of just there to be a cop. She doesn't do too much else otherwise. She's not a massive character. And but yeah, she was fine. And Black Mask, played by Ewan McGregor, was amazing in this movie. I really liked his performance. I really liked Ewan McGregor's performance in this movie. I thought he did an amazing job. I thought it was a really fun villain to have in the DCEU, and he's probably my favorite DCEU villain, maybe just second to Starro. I really liked him in this. I really thought he was charismatic, but he also had that asshole-ish spark that would help you root for the heroes instead of for the villain. And Zaz, I think, works pretty well. I like how he's done as like kind of Roman's sidekick. I think he's done pretty well, in my opinion, for what the story's doing. And I did love his role in the movie too. And as I said, Cassandra Cain is kind of annoying in this one, but she's fine, I guess. Otherwise, beyond it being a little annoying and it kind of being way too different from the source material, where she should have been named just something else. She's not even the same character. Beyond just being named the same character, she really should have just been named something else. But otherwise, I don't mind her too much. I think the actress does a decent job, and she's charismatic a lot of the time. I think she bounces really well off of Harley Quinn in the movie, so I thought that was, like, their dynamic is pretty good in this movie. It just doesn't make too much sense as her being, Cassandra Cain. And yeah, all the side characters and stuff are fine. I don't know, not too much to say about that, because the main characters are definitely the main ones, and the side characters aren't really in it at all. So, yeah. I didn't mind them. But yeah, and then the plot is pretty good. It works pretty well for what it's going for. We start off with Harley having just broken up with the Joker in this really cool animated scene that I really enjoyed that scene too. the animated intro, I think, worked really well. It was kind of a unique, concept that we haven't seen much something like that in the DCEU, and I really enjoyed that. I really thought that was something kind of cool and interesting. How it goes through the entire backstory in just like 3 or 4 minutes. It doesn't waste like half the movie giving Harley's origin or something, because this isn't a full-blown Harley movie. If it was, it makes sense to have the origin be like half the movie, but with it still having other characters besides Harley, I think it worked. I think it was really interesting, a smart idea to just have it be like this 3 to 4 minute animated scene at the beginning. And then after that, we see her, like, after she's broken up with the Joker, doing all these different things. Like, she's at the roller derby, which was a really cool scene. Like, that's in like the New 52 run, I believe. I read the New 52 and the Rebirth run around the same time, and I believe it was just in one of them, and I think it was the New 52 one. I think it was referenced in the Rebirth one, but I'm not sure. I'd have to reread them. But yeah, with the roller derby and stuff, and then her at the end of this intro blowing up Ace Chemicals, blowing it sky high to signify she's with the Joker. She's not with the Joker anymore, and I loved that as an introduction. Then we see Renee figure it out, and she's on Harley's trail now, and we see Harley struggling without the Joker's protection now from all these people she's wronged, including Roman Sionis, Black Mask, who is like the other big kingpin of Gotham. And it leads to the main conflict that Harley has with Roman throughout the entire film. And I really like how that works, how it sets this entire thing up. I love how the entire movie hinges on a breakup. And that is such a unique idea in a comic book. That's not a unique idea in general. It's just something you don't see in comic book movies, because comic book movies normally have these super big stakes in them. So it's really cool to see movies like this and Spider-Man Homecoming that aren't so big in stakes in comparison, but are still set in these big universes. It's cool to see these nice, colorful little changes in tone and stuff that you don't normally see in these. And I really gravitate toward this movies because I also really dig Spider-Man Homecoming too. But back onto topic. After that, we see the big chase scene where she's being chased by Renee Montoya and these other people who want to get revenge on her, and she does this big maneuver that was just a hint of luck to take them all 3 down in the end. And I love how that scene works, and I love how it's done. It's a really fun scene. And then we see Black Canary shows up in like the movie as like Roman Sionis's favorite person that works for him and stuff, and she's on this big pat, and she has this big thing with Roman and she also has this thing where her mother had the same power she did, but she died working with the cops, and the cops didn't really do anything about it, so she has this big thing against them. And then we have and then Roman captures Harley, and he has her try to they break a deal where in order for Harley to survive, she has to find Cassandra Cain and the diamond and bring it back to him, right? And then it leads to this big action scene, that in the police, like the police, whatever it's called, in the prison or whatever, at the police part of it, where she takes them all down with the paint and the smoke and stuff. That one I really enjoyed. Yeah, it leads to that big action scene, and which I really enjoyed, and it also moves the plot along kind of. And there's this cool poster in like the side, which if you're not looking for it, you don't really notice, where Captain Boomerang's shown there, which is yet another tie into Suicide Squad, because even if I don't love to admit it, it is tied to Suicide Squad. But yeah, and then after this we get like Huntress's backstory, saying how the diamond was originally the Bertinelli's, and how she survived and all that stuff because one of the henchmen hid her away. So she gets this big revenge plan on all the other shooters and the family that did it and everything. And it leads to this big story up with that. And then we get more characterization of all the characters, where just smaller moments happen between there's the scene in the jail and stuff with Harley fighting the inmates and the other people going for the girl and stuff because Roman put a bounty on her head. But yeah, and then there's these little character moments spliced throughout, and then we reach the big, like we see how Black Canary slowly starts to realize how bad Roman is, or she already knew it, but that she had to do something about it. So she teams up with the cop, with Renee Montoya, and Huntress is, like I said, she doesn't get too much. She sadly doesn't get a ton of screen time. So she doesn't get, like, her main screen time is in the flashbacks and in that big final action scene, which kind of sucks. But I did really enjoy her there for what she did have. But yeah, so we see these characterizations and this build-up of the relationship between Cassandra Cain and Harley Quinn. This big relationship, this big friendship they have going on, which leads up to the final scene where Harley kind of betrays Cassandra Cain by getting ready to turn her over to Roman before the cop comes in drunk and tries to attack Harley but kind of fails to do so. And then Dinah, Black Canary, and Zaz show up. I was pretty sure, yeah, I just watched this last night, but I'm having a little bit of a hard time concentrating since I'm talking about so much. Because I don't normally script these out, as I said. But yeah, where Zaz and Dinah show up, and they knock Harley out before Zaz gets on, like, says that, he also threatens Dinah because she's a rat, which is also why, yeah, I didn't establish too much, but if you're watching this, you've already seen the film. I'm just doing sort of a breakdown. But yeah, then how Roman is after them because Zaz found out that Dinah is a rat and stuff, so he's threatening her, and then Huntress comes in and takes Zaz down because he was one of the shooters at where all of her family died. So, and then they all have to team up to get out of there alive because Roman is now there and is having people kill all of them. So it's this big, so it leads to the booby trap fight, which I love, and which leads to Harley having a confrontation with Roman, in which she fails to which she has this big monologue before she wastes the one bullet and shoots one of the sculptures there instead of Roman himself. But then Cass blows Roman up because of her whole sneaky fingers thing, because she's a pickpocket. And then it leads to the end where Harley and Cassandra have this thing where they get away and they start doing supervillain stuff, and then the Birds of Prey officially start with Dinah, Huntress, and Black Canary, Huntress, and Renee Montoya. And that's kind of the ending of the story, as you know, since you've probably already seen the film if you're watching this, like I said. Because it's already been out for a year and a half or more. So if you haven't seen it, you probably aren't going to watch this video anyway if you don't care what I have to say or if you don't have to care what I have to say on the movie. And if you care what I have to say on the movie, you probably have already seen the film. But yeah, so then they get away and everything, and it turns out just fine for them until whatever happens where she said she got road rage in a bank, whatever happened to Cassandra Cain and stuff before the Suicide Squad. But yeah, and then it ends. Then there's a little voice stinger at the end where Harley says, "Why are you still sitting here?" and stuff, which feels Deadpool-like. Although something I've seen a lot of people say is that this is basically Deadpool for girls, which is kind of true. But yeah, so yeah, overall I think the plot really works for what's going on here. It gives great character moments, and it gives this. It's a simple, laid back, low stakes story, and I really enjoyed it. You don't have too big of stakes, but it's not a film that really needs them because it doesn't feel like it's trying to be this big film. Because everyone's gonna survive just fine, so it's not trying to build up stakes. It's just trying to get you to know and like these characters, and I think it does that really well. I think the entire film does that really well, and it works out. And yeah, it's a great film. I really enjoy it. It's one of those films that I've watched the most times out of any films. I've watched it 50-something times, I believe, from what I remember, and every single time I have really enjoyed it. It is a really, really fun and interesting and enjoyable film. But yeah, and then let's talk about why it matters to me personally. For starters, it came out at the right time for me to really matter to me. It came out right before the pandemic started, so when it came out on Blu-ray and stuff, it was right there for me to watch. Well, I had nothing better to do but just sit around at home and watch TV. So I watched it more times and got more and more out of it every single time, because it's just here for me to watch and I have nothing better to do, so I just throw it on and enjoy every part about it like I did the first time. It really was there for me, because there weren't new movies coming out that often that were any good, because most of them were just streaming movies that weren't going to be that good anyway. There were movies that didn't have big productions or anything, so they were just being released at home. And a lot of times there are movies that didn't have that great of... I mean, there were good movies released last year. Like The King of Staten Island is a really good movie that released last year. The Trial of Chicago 7 is a really good movie. There are really good movies that came out last year. Like Promising Young Woman is another one. But those movies didn't come around as early, and just weren't as fun as Birds of Prey was. Birds of Prey was a really fun movie to watch too. It was a movie that you could just easily that I could just easily watch anyway multiple times. So it's one I could just throw on and just sit back and relax and enjoy the film multiple times. And it came around at the perfect time for that. And it's also another reason it's really important to me personally is it's basically a feature film for one of my favorite characters of all time, Harley Quinn. I own a lot of different stuff for Harley Quinn specific, and I own quite a few of the comics. I own quite a few of the Funko Pops and stuff. I own a poster for Birds of Prey and all that. For a lot of the comics I don't own, I have read her entire Rebirth run besides like the last 15 issues, and I have read the entire New 52 run besides like the last 20 issues. And her character matters a lot to me. She is one of the characters that has mattered the most to me out of any character out there. She is one that I can really connect with, which is kind of bad because she's an insane killer. But she's one of my favorite characters of all time. One of my favorite DC characters of all time. Possibly my favorite DC character. And it matters a lot to me because this is like her big movie. Even if it's a Birds of Prey movie, labeled as a Birds of Prey movie, it is basically a Harley Quinn movie. So it really is there. It's a big Harley Quinn movie, and I love Harley Quinn. It's right down my alley. And it has these big themes of women empowerment and stuff as a white male. It's not like I'm the top expert to speak on this by any means. But I do really enjoy those undertones. It's not why it matters to me as much, but it's still a really cool movie. And that way, too, it really matters to a lot of people because of that. And it's just overall a great movie to be here in, like, now. It's a movie that really mattered to come out when it did. And I'm glad it did. It is a great movie. It helped me through a tough time. And I wouldn't, even if there's annoyances I have about it, there's not much I'd change about it. It's overall just a fantabulous movie, entirely hinged on a breakup and a diamond. Hey, if you enjoyed this video, I'd recommend checking out some other videos on my channel, or maybe not, I don't care. You do you. But yeah, if you really enjoyed this, I'd recommend checking some of those other out. Give it a chance. But yeah, anyways, most of you are probably subscribed anyway, so hope to see you later. Peace out.